Hi, we're Danelle and Megan, the hosts of this conversation-centric podcast for leaders seeking to be better every day. Whether you choose to be a leader in the workplace, at home, or in your community, we believe the most effective leaders are equipped to not only be self-starters, but self-smarter.
Good morning.
Hello.
Good morning. Oh my gosh. Or good afternoon, depending on when you're listening to this. But this is going to share early in the morning, and we're just so glad to be here. This is the first episode of the Self Smarter podcast.
Yes. Number one. Here we go.
How long have you been dreaming about this?
I'd say probably about 4 or 5 years. I've been seriously thinking about a podcast. We're major fans of podcasts around here, and so I can't help in my mind think about us doing something. But I wrestled with what was going to be the subject matter, and I could never wrap my head around marketing, even though we're professionals in marketing. So
we are professionals in marketing. And in fact, you own the business.
I do. I've owned this business for 18 years, and I still can't believe it's been 18 years, but sometimes it seems like yesterday, and sometimes it seems like a really long time ago. We've worked together for 15 of them, too, so you've been alongside most of the way.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we've had a lot of ups and downs.
Lots of ups and downs.
Lots of zigs and zags.
Mm-hmm.
And just curveballs that, quite frankly, sometimes we did not know how to receive.
Nope.
And so here we sit today. Like, if I could just sort of flash forward into past all of that, because guess what? We're going to unpack a lot of that, not only today, but over the life of our podcast. Mm-hmm. And so I'm really excited about it.
Me too.
If I don't sound excited, it's because I'm holding back the thrill.
You'll know when she's super excited.
Yes.
It might hurt your ear a minute.
It might hurt your ear. So I'm going to try to tame myself while still being me. But we like to chat. Danelle and I talk a lot. We talk all the time. We talk multiple times a day. We Instagram message each other. We text each other. It's a constant communication. It's because we work together so closely. Mm-hmm. And so as we start to talk about this podcast, because everyone's here because we started Self Smarter Podcast.
Yes. And
they really want to know about why.
Mm-hmm.
So my first question is, well, first of all, I should tee up. I should backtrack just a little bit. Self Smarter sounds like self starter.
Correct.
And there's a big difference.
Correct. Okay. And that is by design. And I would say that comes from the genesis of I've been a self-starter for as long as I can remember. Initiative is not something I've been short on in my life. And because have that initiative, and I'm a born self-starter, I'm not sure. But I know that extroverted, high energy, and an Enneagram 7, that will be a footnote for a lot of you as you continue to listen on this podcast. Because of those innate traits, I found success in a lot of things that I did, even as a young child, teenager, college student. That type of energy and extrovertedness and confidence carried me so far. It was instrumental in the first 10 years of my career, and it certainly was a catalyst for this company the first 5-7 years of the company. And so self-starter was the thing I knew. It was the thing I was rewarded for time and time again. The initiative, the take risk, those are the things that brought us so much success. And I'll just speak to the business at this point, brought us so much success, and me as a leader. The industry rewarded it. Our clients rewarded it. You know, you and Mackenzie and Marcy have been along the longest on this journey with us. You all rewarded me by sticking around and believing in me. And then the tide, there's a couple of things that happened. I know we're going to unpack that, where I started to realize that, wait a minute, being a self-starter wasn't really going to carry me through, not only as the owner and founder and CEO of this company, but also as a mom of an amazing, at the time, just when all this started to occur, a young teenager.
What was the trigger? What were you seeing happening around you?
What was happening is that we had year-over-year success in this business. So sales was not an issue. we got along. I didn't see any great big red flags, but there was something I couldn't put my finger on, but my gut was screaming, something is not right around here. I don't know how else to say it.
Right.
And that came in the form of, again, you had this one side where you could see green lights, if you will.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
But then the red lights started.
Plug.
Yes, we'll plug Matthew McConaughey all day long. That's a wonderful book, by the way.
Yes, it is.
It's a better audio listen. I'll just say that. But I would say that I started to see red flags. Red flags looked like attrition. Red flags looked like people not growing into leaders, not accepting responsibility. We had a lot of pass the buck around here. We had a lot of meetings after the meetings, the things that Brene describes as just being culture killers. And as I started to realize that, I started to say, whoa, I need to take a little bit of a deeper listen. And that came from also the folks that were at the company at the time. There were 7 employees beside myself.
Yes.
Yeah. Or including myself.
No, it was including you.
There were 7 of us. It had come to my attention that you all wanted performance reviews. And so I sought out a consultant to come in and help us put together our first performance review.
And how did that? I know how it went, but for the benefit of the folks listening, and to those of you who are listening who know Danelle, so I think a lot of folks do know you. And we're going to blow this up on social media, right? Yay, podcast number 1. And so they're going to listen to this and they're going to go, I didn't know that. Would you say that?
Yeah.
Okay.
This is a truth that I began sharing probably a couple short years ago.
Right. And
Yes.
recently told the team, which eyeballs were really big and wide and like really. So would love for you to share about how that went with the consultant. What did the consultant find out?
Sure.
And what did she say?
So the genesis was it was an anonymous survey that she gave to every single person in the company. She administered it. So they answered the question, but then there was a follow-up notes so that there would be context. And I saw the questions, so I knew what the questions were. And I was so excited to get the results because I did want to be better.
Yeah, of course.
But I'll be honest, I was expecting, I don't know, if I were to put it in grades, a solid B+.
Okay, tell me just quickly, if you can remember, just 2 questions that you remember being on that. I do remember.
Okay, then
one of them.
I've tried to black it's a dark moment for me.
This is a dark moment. But really, we were unaware of the dark. You were at
No,
this.
I had no clue.
Yeah. You were going through the consultative process with this woman, and she's like, here are the questions I'm going to ask these people. And I think those questions, there were like 5 to 10. There weren't a lot.
Right.
But what there was, will you follow Danelle? Do you believe in the mission and what we're trying to do, which, by the way, was to increase demand of fresh fruits and vegetables.
Correct.
Through marketing, whether that's a tweet or showing up at a trade show. Okay. And then number 2, it was, do you trust Danelle and will you follow her?
Yes, those questions were on there.
Yeah. So it was 2 of, let's say, 10 of just an example. And again, folks, this was like 8 years ago.
It was 8 years ago.
8 years ago. Yeah. So we're trying to pull those memories back is like kind of difficult to do. But
Had a glass of wine or 2 since then.
Yeah. But the zinger is when she gave you the results.
Right. And I do know that we can circle back to the questions that really spurred the results. But I was so excited about the results that I remember I was coming home from a trip and I asked her to meet me at my house, which is very close to DFW, because I was so excited to get the results.
I'm going to get good stuff here.
Yeah, good stuff that I can build upon.
Yeah, at my house.
At my house. And I'm going to unknowingly ask my husband to join in.
Oh, yeah, he wants to hear it.
And you know what? Mackie, who was probably 12 at the time,
yes,
why don't you
daughter.
come and, sit down and get Mom's results. I'm getting some scores today.
So fun.
And then the consultant, who was amazing, Stacy was her name, is her name. Stacy, in just coolest fashion, delivered the blow early on. And the blow was I had a 26% approval rating as a leader and communicator. 26% approval rating. And in that moment, I felt a rush of emotions. Now I know more about what those emotions are because we're reading Atlas of the Heart by Brene, but we'll talk about that many times over in the next few weeks. But I was just flushed with emotion relative to I was ashamed. I was shocked. I was devastated. And mostly because there were 6 other people at the company.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like
and I was one of them.
Yes, you were. And she was very skilled, Stacy, I'm referring to. She was very skilled at helping me identify exactly what I needed to do to correct this. 3 of the action items were immediate things I just needed to change about the business. And I think one of them was we had unlimited.
Me.
Well, we
that
had
was one.
Well, that was the 4th one. But other 3, and a great example was they don't like having unlimited PTO. They want schedule. They want a specific amount of PTO. And I was like, really?
Yeah. And
so there were just some things about the business and me and making decision as a leader that I could control. And I took care of those 3 things the very next day.
Whether or not you loved it or not,
right.
you can control it.
Correct. And I announced to the company my results and the 3 things that we were going to change immediately. And the 4th thing was that everyone at the company at the time was reporting to me, which was a big problem.
Yes.
So my next move, and I think I did that within a week or 2, was to promote you.
Yeah, you called me on the phone.
Yep, promoted you. Yep. And that addressed that. And then the 5th one was the thing that Stacy's like, you've got to decide, do you want to be a better leader and communicator? And in that moment, I had a decision to make. I could have written this off because there were 6 people.
Right.
And maybe 3 of you were having a bad day or I'd pissed you off.
Right.
Like I could have easily in my mind justified these results as being something that weren't exactly accurate. But thankfully, I decided to take it as 110% the truth. And I knew at that moment that people were willing to follow me, but they weren't enjoying it. And that was not acceptable to me. And I knew if I was showing up at work in that way, I was sure as heck showing up in my home that way. And looking at a 12-year-old soon to go into the dicey world of teenage, I started to realize that some of my strengths, the strengths that have made me the likable, the successful person that I can be at times, was also significantly a derailer. My strengths were also predominantly weaknesses going unchecked. And they were just continue to go unchecked. Oh, yeah, absolutely.
She said your biggest strengths are also your quickest derailers.
Absolutely. And so in that moment of consciousness, I decided that that wasn't good enough. And, I had been very proud of being a really skilled marketer. Like that's what we were. I was still very involved with the work. Didn't come out of that till recently, but I wanted all of us to be the best marketers. So we've always been students since day one of marketing and of me studying business books and being the best businesswoman that I could be, from our financial acumen and all of these markers, these kind of, I don't know, these business marketers of what our balance sheet showed and what our EBITDA was. And I came from this asset-based world and those things mattered. And I started to put those books away and I started to pick up books like Brene Brown. I mean, you had already read Gifts of Imperfection. Mm-hmm. I fell into Daring Greatly. At the same time, this 8 years ago, I was going through some personal strife that this journey also helped me with of self-discovery. And I didn't look towards you all. I looked towards myself and I grabbed a mirror and I said, this is all about you at this moment. We're not going to even worry about the rest because this culture is suffering from your lack of communication, your lack of self-awareness. And the great news is you can make it better. And that filled my tank. Then you get to, that didn't happen so quickly.
Well, it happened, and that's really all that matters,
absolutely.
Right? And
which is a big part of why we're here.
That is why
we're doing this podcast.
That's exactly right. And so my next question was going to be, do you think people who are in leadership positions think they're a failure? Do you think that they just don't know, and so they're just kind of going by this gut, like you were talking about?
Sure.
And these indicators, these sort of visual on paper indicators of success, when really there are other indicators of success. So do you think people are going through that?
Oh, absolutely. 100%, which is what has given us a big boost of confidence when I started to open up more and more as, the company, and we'll talk about the transition of this company, as I started to open up with other colleagues in this industry, I joined a mastermind group, coaching, like I've sought a lot of peer-to-peer interaction. And when I start to talk about all that we've gone through the last 8 years, it becomes very obvious to me that, boy, we've learned a lot. And yes, people are struggling with how to be a leader because leaders are not born. Leaders are made, and they're made by a conscious decision to do something different and to be vulnerable. And it requires self-awareness, and it requires you to have a lot of grace for yourself and others. And I think that is the piece that really gave us, starting with myself, working with you and the leadership team, and then ultimately the entire company, to bring this podcast to life that's not about our discipline, our core discipline, which is marketing.
That's right.
Fresh food and good for you foods. I mean, that's what we do every day. But
Yes.
we're doing a podcast based on leadership,
Yes.
which is a component of leaders inside the office
Yes.
and outside the office, and what that looks like. Because I don't want others to have the shock and extreme disappointment of finding yourself in such a poor position that forced. I mean, again, I didn't have to make the decision, but in my opinion, I did. I want there to be a lot more of a proactive steps that people take. So I want to share what our journey looks like over the 8 years, so that others can get into more effective leadership positions, because we need it. We need it certainly in the industries we serve. We know that, as being as dedicated and niche as we are as a business, but I see the ripple effect. I see the work that we're doing here is making a difference in the people who work here, and even with our clients and peers that I work with. I see the difference it's making, what we're sharing and what we got right and what we got wrong. So, that's why we're doing this. We're taking a big chance on doing something that's kind of out of our lane. But honestly, it's in our lane because we're living and breathing this every day. And I look at the success of this company, and the thing that's catapulted it the last few years is our commitment to development. And how much we're pouring into development of people, what they know about themselves, their leadership, communication. It's that huge investment that we are committed to that's making the biggest difference. And now we're seeing it with our teenage kids.
Yes.
We're seeing it with my college-age daughter. I mean, the difference the way she's showing up, self-aware in her roles as she's a senior in college. Thankfully, I'm about to get a raise. Yay! Yay! And when I see that, I feel so encouraged to share this journey with people.
Do you think that...
And be on it with you, because it's far from over.
Oh, no.
Far from
So
over.
there's two questions in my head right now. One is, and just think about this, but do you think other businesses or other business leaders think that they're behind relative to cultural development and this topic? And then the second question that kind of parlays is, do you think the pandemic sped up our need, like increased our need for cultural development?
Well, the answer to the latter is 100% yes.
Yeah.
It exposed so much vulnerabilities in companies, including our own. And we've had our hands around this, and we've been committed to it for a while, but we found some cracks in our culture during COVID that we had to work through, and it was very painful.
So if you're a leader, if you're a leader paying attention during the pandemic.
Correct. You saw it.
You saw
the cracks.
Right? And not even DMA, I'm talking about out there.
No, in general.
In the world.
Yes,
like people
absolutely.
are seeing it, like shifting from in-office to Zoom, and then what was that? And then going back.
Yes.
Ay.
Exactly.
Yeah, so that definitely propelled the need.
Correct.
Then people became aware that there was a need. But do you think that people think that they're behind in this?
I do. And the reason why is it was 8 years ago, Megan, I thought I knew what leadership was, and I thought I knew what culture was. I had no clue. I didn't realize what fundamentally needed to happen. I thought leadership was almost this anointed.
Yeah, how often we get together for happy hour.
Well, that's on the culture side. But from a leadership perspective, I thought a leader was someone who'd worked their way into a position. I didn't realize
the anointment.
That's right. And the position. And I chased that stuff for years. And so I started to realize
titles and these things.
You had to have a certain title to be a leader.
Yeah.
Right? No. So I realized what leadership, I started to realize in those moments what leadership truly was. And it took us a while. And then culture, I definitely had wrong.
Yeah.
I thought it was, again, like what you're saying,
Yeah.
happy hours or fun things.
Yes.
Or
Which is the number one question people ask when they
Correct.
interview.
Yes.
What's the culture like around here?
Right. Well, first of all, I think we need to spend a lot more time
thinking
and
about
we
what
are
we're
going
to say.
In fact, that's one of our upcoming episodes is on culture. Yes, exactly. Because I think there's a lot to unpack there. But no, I think people are struggling with it, and other leaders, and I 100%.
You spoke on a panel last year at one of our industry events, and it was a women's forum.
Correct.
Women's forum. And multiple people approached you after. What do you think you said to them? What struck a nerve? What did you say?
I mean, I talked to them in a very summarized fashion about the 26% approval rating.
Okay.
And I talked about the darkness that I faced going through COVID. And so COVID hits, we rally as a company. We had some low months, but then we rallied and ended up having, the best month in company history of October of 2020. Right. Yeah. That's also at the same time to where I started to face some darkness in terms of I couldn't see forward. Mm-hmm. And I couldn't see forward for the business. Mm-hmm. My daughter was junior. Mm-hmm. There's just a lot of personal and professional things I couldn't sort through. And I admitted that. And, and I admitted that I sought help during that time. So I think admitting that I struggled with an audience who most of the people either knew me personally or knew of me, and the others who didn't, they just saw the position of CEO and president.
That's right. They just think you've got it together.
They think I've got it together, and they know that we have a successful business if they know our business. And
right. Meanwhile, you're Mount Vesuvius.
Yes, I'm
just on the inside.
Just on the inside,
yeah.
And so I think, because I talked about it, and I talked about the fact that this journey I've been on relative to self-discovery and being okay with therapy and being okay with, seeking advice from other people and that piece alone, I think, gave a permission to people to not be perfect and to not feel as even though they are in a leadership position that they don't struggle. Mm-hmm. And I think just talking about the struggle resonated with people. I'm still getting feedback from that session. I've made connections with a lot of people because of it. And so I think that had a lot to do with it. I think just the vulnerability of not getting it right and feeling faulty. And we had a very successful run as a company through COVID. Mm-hmm. And I still felt a little bit lost. And so...
Yeah. And I mean, really, it was, I think that feedback...
It might have been exhaustion. But it was something.
For sure. And I think a lot of people can relate to that. Mm-hmm. But I think what you experienced in 2021 with that, after that speaking engagement and the reaction and the response that you got was the kick in the pants, sort of, that you needed to really pull the trigger on this podcast.
For sure. Oh, for sure.
And so here we are.
Here we are.
Episode 1.
Episode
8 years later.
Yeah.
Here we sit. And so why self-smarter? Okay. Why that?
Well, that is actually something I'm extremely proud of. And the reason why I'm proud of it is because we sat down as a company and I said, it's time that we do this. And I gave the why behind why I felt. So in that moment, I became the client of this incredible group of marketers. And I was able to explain to them how I wanted this podcast to go and why I thought it was important. And then they asked thoughtful questions. And so as a group, we did as we do with all the brands that we work with. They basically guided me through the process of naming. I think we came up with 60 different variations of names. We narrowed 6 of them down. The team, I think it took 2 weeks to research them, to go through all the due diligence on the name. I think they used the story that I've shared now, and that's also in the trailer. I recommend that everyone listen to that. There's a lot of good of why we're doing this and what we intend to do. And they took me through options on names, and we ended up with Self Smarter because it was unique, and it played off of what I had mentioned earlier, as I was a self-starter, and many of us are. But it's the self-smarter part that really ultimately makes a difference, and it's the part that can be overlooked because it's uncomfortable. Self-discovery is not a cakewalk. It's filled with highs and a lot of lows, because when you truly take a look at yourself, it's not all sunshine and rainbows. And that's for anyone. Yes. And we know that as a company, and that's not just for someone who's, nearing right around the corner of 50 or someone in their mid-40s. It's also folks in their 20s, and I'm so blessed to be in a position to be able to help people earlier on, because I think if we would have had those tools earlier on, we would have avoided. I mean, I love where we've ended up, but we would have avoided a lot of heartache potentially, and embarrassment and potential, shame, and some of the things that we've experienced. So the team, we narrowed it down. We did the due diligence. We came up with Self Smarter. We loved the fact now I'm talking a little bit of marketing jargon, but there were a lot of benefits can't help it. There were a lot of benefits to choosing that name, and then the team took it from there. And everything that you see, if you're watching on YouTube, the beautiful branding, if you visit our website, what you'll see on social media, that is all the work of this incredible group. And they put this together in a matter of, pretty expeditious fashion without skipping anything.
Right.
And it's
amazing team.
Where we are today. So that's the genesis of it.
So ultimately, really, what happened with the 2021, what's happened over the last 8 years, is you have awakened to the fact that this is a need, that there's a need for people to just talk.
Correct.
And be open about the struggles in leadership, that leadership is hard.
Correct.
We talk a lot about that. Leadership is hard. And we also we can do hard things. We like the Jennifer Nettles song, I Can Do Hard Things. That's our one of our songs. I don't know if it's a mantra, but it's certainly a go-to song.
Absolutely.
And then it's also a podcast that we listen to by Glennon Doyle, who I'm obsessed with, and so are you. But really, we're sort of joining that conversation, and we're inviting folks in who are leading and recognizing that it's difficult.
Absolutely.
And then unpacking that twice a month. Maybe we get to a point where we do it more often. We'll see. You'll tell us, folks listening. But it's to help people.
Correct.
That's it. It's really it. We're just gonna talk about that. Now, one thing I did want to ask you, because I think it's important. People who are listening are like, yeah, leadership is hard. It really is hard. Why is it so freaking hard? Why do you think leadership is so hard?
Because I think we see it as something that's outside of ourselves. I don't think we realize that it's simply a decision to become more self-aware, to take accountability, and to practice it. I think we think it's this thing that we obtain versus something we practice, and it's a mastery. Yeah. It's not this, it's certainly not perfection.
Yeah, no.
And it's far from that. And I think because there's leadership books, and it's almost like it's this noun versus, this commitment. And, it's this thing, I guess would be a better way to say it.
It's working a muscle.
It is. It is. And I think it's because it starts with oneself and really understanding it. I think that's the piece that I believe we're in this renaissance of, because we have voices and, that are helping us with it. Brene, Patrick Lencioni, Dave Ramsey. We're big fans of EntreLeadership. When I think all the greats, like when I see that we have language now that's being developed, Simon Sinek,
yeah.
I'm a huge fan of Kristen Hadid. And you're talking about, not only did my peers provide the confidence for this particular podcast, but also leaders like Kristen Hadid. And, hopefully we've invited her to be on the podcast, and she's graciously accepted. And when I see that the conversation I recently had with her on her live, she encouraged it. And the reason why she encouraged us to do this is she's like, you're in it. You're in an applicable position. You've applied it. You've gotten it right. And you've gotten it a lot wrong.
Yeah.
And that's what people will remember is the right, what didn't work.
Right.
Sometimes as much what did work. But she's like, you are so committed at a level that I'm in awe of. Right. As a business owner. She's an author. Look her up, Kristen Hadid. Incredible book, Permission to Screw Up. We had her as a keynote speaker recently at our winter retreat, and we're going to be doing a lot more with her going forward. And that also fed that thing I needed to see us in a position to have these conversations with people each and every week about leadership and our journey and self-discovery, and then to unpack new things with this audience.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think I was still fighting a little bit of imposter-ish. Like, who are you to think that you can do this?
Right.
And I can tell you who we are.
Right.
We're the people that have done it and are still doing it
right.
and are committed to continue to do it. That's who we are.
And it's hard.
And it's hard.
And we make no bones about that.
No.
Because business isn't new.
No.
I mean, like, if you really think about it, you think about historical leaders in the United States or anywhere for that matter, business leaders. Lee Iacocca. I mean, name anybody.
Why did you pick him?
I don't know.
I don't know. My grandfather worked for Chrysler. I had to ask.
Yeah, no, for sure. And Ford. I was thinking about Ford.
Okay.
Too.
Okay.
Warren Buffett. All the great leaders. They all talk about, it's like all those things that you were saying earlier. It's like the surface level markers. I have no idea how they talked to their employees or what their culture was like. No clue. Nobody talked about that. Right. So while business and the we have to have business to make the world go round, certainly in the United States. But nobody has really talked about these things. Isn't that strange? I mean, it's 2022 and we're just talking about this. It's really interesting to think about that from a historical standpoint. I'm just saying. I mean, I'm no feminist, or maybe I am, but it just is interesting.
To pitch on which were the 25 definitions of that you would like to choose from.
Yeah, it is just interesting that this is a woman-owned business.
What we are.
Majority women who work here. We do have men. But it's also time to talk about these things. Like, we're no longer willing to just kind of sweep these things under the rug. Right. Talking about the way people feel, talking about the fact that leadership is hard, and talking about the fact that these things come when you decide to be in a business or own one or lead one. That this is now what we look like. And so we have to talk about it. It's almost like you have to. It's a responsible thing to do.
Absolutely.
And so would you say, to the people who are listening and considering whether or not they're going to come back next week, which we would love to have you back.
Absolutely.
Why? Why do people need to come back? Why do you want them to listen to this?
I think I love the idea of us being on this journey with more people outside of our office, our company.
Yeah, the 20 of us.
I love the idea of more people bringing their input and their struggles to us, and we are able to unpack it. Obviously, we have full intentions of having guests on this podcast. I mean, I think I'm more excited about the things we're going to learn together. We are certainly going to share all the things that have gotten us here and the things that have, again, worked and things that didn't work. But I think it's the journey forward to continue down this path that I'm most excited about. So I hope that people will come back because they see two real people being vulnerable.
Yeah.
Hopefully we can keep it lively and fun and make the seemingly deeper subject matter a little bit more lighthearted and relatable. That's what I hope that people are looking for when they come here is the relatable. And I would love that to be the case for the college student, particularly one who's
in New York City
right now. But the college student all the way to, the seasoned CEO who still realizes, or, even someone who doesn't work inside the traditional office space, leaders in the community, leaders in their church, leaders in schools. I hope that we have... And what I mean by that is I have a lot of friends who aren't in the traditional workspace that they're leaders too. They're leading groups of people to do amazing things. And so leadership shouldn't just be this thing that is relegated to business people. It should be something that we're thinking about even for our teenage kids.
Oh, yeah.
And we should be practicing these skills earlier on. And, don't get me started. And I will, it is a soapbox I will get on often. But our education system is lacking the real skills that are needed in communications. They're often called soft skills. I don't subscribe to that. I call them real skills of empathy, understanding, listening. I mean, communication is, I think it kind of bridges both traditional hard skills and the real skills. But those are the things that I think we need to be elevating more. So why should someone continue to listen to this podcast? Well, because maybe they have a 13-year-old and they want to hear about how we're going to talk about vulnerability and shame and how we're going to use that type of knowledge that we were learning alongside raising teenagers.
Right.
So I think it's people who just want to be a part of a community that's willing to talk about these things. That's who I hope will continue to listen. And I have no grand ideas of the size of the listeners of this podcast. If it helps a few people and you pass it along, we're going to be winning, because I know what we've learned and what we will continue to learn is a value to people, and it's making a difference.
It is. I think ultimately it is making a difference here. It has made a difference in my life. It has made a difference in your life. And we just hope to share that difference-making capability
absolutely
with everybody who's willing to listen. So thank you for that. I appreciate it very much. And I know our listeners do too. So one thing we love at DMA, when we get to some fun stuff, this is kind of a heavy topic. So.
Oh, it is? Oh, okay.
No, that was the why self smarter. But for music, we love music. And in the trailer, you mentioned that sometimes we're going to riff on some music.
Absolutely.
Which doesn't mean that anyone's going to sing. So that those of you who know Janelle know that karaoke, the art of karaoke, is one of her favorite things. Getting on a stage and entertaining is not one of your weaknesses.
No, not a weakness.
No, in fact, she's so joyful when she does it, like she'll pull you in there. And I can say and testify
as
to the fact
most of people around here can.
And probably those of you listening, that you have at some point been on a stage next to Danelle singing, or behind her doing some sort of backup dance or backup singing, because she
potentially
gets you there. She gets you there. Get up here. Get up here. You know you love this song. So let's talk about music a little bit.
All right.
Music moment.
Okay. Our music moment.
Yes.
First one. Here we go.
We love Adele.
We do.
Adele is, musically, can you get any better? I don't know.
I probably could argue it, but it would be
I probably could
difficult.
too, but we really don't want to argue it.
No, we don't want to argue.
We don't. We just love her, and that's that. She recently canceled her first concert, Residency, at Caesar's Palace in Las Vegas. So if anybody who's not been paying attention, just to recap, Adele did launch a new album in the last, I think it dropped in November.
The single dropped in, maybe the whole album did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we've been listening to it ever since and obsessed, right?
Oh, the single Easy on Me
Yes.
released in October. A month later,
that's right.
album dropped.
Okay, so then obviously anybody who loves Adele knows that this residency was taking place. People are booking tickets. People are preparing to go to Caesars. I'm sure people were going there from all over the world. And then poof, she recently announced she canceled.
Correct.
What do you, in terms of all that we've talked about today, I'm just curious what you think. What's your take on how she responded?
Wow. I think that's a big question. And again, putting our bias for her artistry aside.
Yes, we must.
And yes, we must. And if you are a fan of Adele, you do know that she is in this process, a 6-year gap, gone through a lot, including a very, difficult divorce.
Yes, everybody. Yes.
Yeah. And if you've read any of the articles, or please tell me, and we'll put the link in the show notes, that you take the time to watch the one. It's called The One and Only.
Yes.
Something like that.
Yes.
It's the concert that she does in LA.
LA.
It's her first performance
At the
in 6 years.
observatory.
Yep.
Yes.
First performance in 6 years. And in the performance, she also does an interview with Oprah, which is another one of our internal icons.
Yum, yum, yum.
Yeah. And when I think about that, and I think about her artistry, and I think about what she's been through, there's mixed reasons out there in the media as to why she made this decision. Her camp is, we weren't ready, too much with COVID, supply chain issues, getting set, this and that, and who knows what. That's of a believable position. There's another camp that says she just wasn't satisfied with the production. She just couldn't get happy with anything that was going on. I think one of the broadcasters, I'm not going to mention his name because I'm not going to bring credibility to him, but he was calling her a diva. She's become an entitled of sorts, a diva, and
yucky things.
Yes, he's not saying good things about it. And then he gave this odd parallel to Freddie Mercury, but I won't even go there. But what I would say, meaning the show must go on.
Yes.
Adele was in a position like many of us are day to day. This one seems larger, but it's really not. Yeah. Adele had a leadership decision to make. Yeah. Adele's made a decision. Now, she may look back on that decision and realize that it might not have been the best, but in the moment, she had to make a decision. Am I willing to go on stage with a product and with a performance that's subpar, knowing that I'm going to disappoint maybe 3 or 4 of the performances of people who already had everything booked? I don't know what the numbers are. Knowing that I'm going to take a huge PR brand hit, but am I willing to sacrifice the one thing that it's brought me to this point?
Right, yeah. Her standards.
And her standards. And I do hope that that is the reason.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
The majority of the reason why she made the decision. The thing that I know Adele can do and her camp can do is they can totally take care of those people that had tickets to that first concert in many different ways.
And I think they are.
And I'm sure that they have the means and the power to do that. I do hope that that's part of it. I hope it wasn't just the heartfelt. I felt like it was a heartfelt apology.
Yeah.
But, I also didn't spend whatever on tickets and had to sit in my rear end in Vegas waiting for that show this weekend. That's right. So I get both sides. But what I tried to pull myself back from the emotion of her show being canceled, I intend to attend Adele's concert.
Yes.
I love that you and your mom did a couple years ago, and that's been on my list. And putting that aside, I couldn't help but think of Adele the leader. That was her call. She made that call. And she's got to live with the consequences of that call that impacted not only her, but her people and her team and her fans.
Yes.
So there's a lot that went behind that decision, and it's hard for me as a leader to think that that was a frivolous, in the moment, last minute call.
No.
Maybe it was. I don't know. But I do know as a leader it was difficult regardless.
Sure.
And so I try to think about that big decision for her and how we make those decisions as leaders every single day. And if you're subscribed to leadership in the way that you should be, you're taking accountability for those decisions and you're owning them. And you're owning what comes at you, the arrows and the hugs and the praise. And I think we like to focus on decisions that secure us with the praise versus the decisions that sometimes cause, the negativity, if you will, and it comes in various formats.
Right.
So
it was a self-smarter move for sure.
It was a self-smarter move, even though we don't know all of the details. But yeah, I think it was a complete self-starter move.
Right. And she clearly was backed into a corner. And a lot of times when you're in a moment of having to make a tough decision, you are backed into a corner and you've only got yourself to look in the mirror at.
Right.
Because you've either prepared for that emotionally or you haven't. And so that really is a lot of what we're going to be unpacking.
Absolutely.
So Adele was just a really nice example. So yay for Adele.
I'm sure it's not the example she wanted to be.
No, she's like, thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, mates. I need to work on that accent.
Yeah, just a bit, just a
little
smidge.
bit. She's probably like, really?
Because she is listening. I'm
Yeah,
sure.
no.
She will be.
Oh my God, Adele's listening right now, everybody. So you are an Enneagram 7. You mentioned that earlier.
I am. True and true.
And you
Tried and
really, in that light, anybody who is an Enneagram 7, I am not, but I do understand Enneagram 7 because I study and work with one here on the other side of the table. So you like to look forward to things.
Mm-hmm.
You really, really do. Like, to me, when I think about how do I position this to Danelle, is it something to look forward to, or is it something that we need to dread? If I want to move it forward, I probably ought to position it in a way that is something to look forward to.
Absolutely.
Right. Okay. So I would love to talk about things that, on our podcast, we're going to be ending things that we're looking forward to. Things you're looking forward to, things for people to get excited about so that they're prepared, and we've got a little palate wetting for the next time we come back around. So what are you looking forward to?
In terms of our subject matter for the
Subject
podcast?
matter, like
Live?
what's going on with you?
All right. Well, there's a lot going on with me, but what I'm looking forward to coming up for the podcast is, we're going to talk about some things that right off the bat that kind of to level set in terms of, I really want to unpack what culture is and what I've learned it to be. And I think that is something that's reoccurring in the conversations I've been having. I think people really struggle with what culture truly is. And I think we've been fed, just like with work-life balance, we've kind of been fed a whole can of BS around what it is and who's responsible for it and what it, and I think when we finally realized what culture was, I think that was a big deal for us. So we're going to talk about culture. We're going to talk about trust. Yep. And we're going to use some of the frameworks of some of that we found to be very helpful, whether that's Patrick Lencioni, Brené's framework for trust. We're going to talk a lot about that.
Speaking of Brené, are you reading anything?
Well, that's coming. So Brené's new book just came out, The Atlas of the Heart. And what I will tell you and what you will learn on this podcast, and if you know me at all, you already know this part of the story, is that I feel like the Enneagram in this 8-year journey of self-discovery and as a team, as a company, I believe that the Enneagram is one of the most impactful things we have not only invested in, but we continue to invest in, what we know about ourselves. And so if you don't know about the Enneagram, I encourage you to look it up. In fact, one of the traits of a 7 is that we always are looking towards the future. So Megan's teed me up well to talk about that. But one of the other traits of a 7, one of the many others, is that we love spontaneity.
Yes, we do.
And so in honor of our
one of
first...
the things I love most.
At times you do. Sometimes it causes a bit of a headache, but in a number of ways. But what I'd like to do in honor of our first podcast dropping on February the 7th, we are going to give away 7 Enneagram test codes, if you will, to our favorite test site. There's multiple places where you can get it, but we do a paid version. And we are going to give 7 of those away.
Nice, the paid version.
The paid version.
The fancy version.
The fancy version of the Enneagram for those of you who might not have taken it, because if you do subscribe to our podcast, which we hope you will earn your confidence over time, is that we're going to talk a lot about the Enneagram. And I will tell you, it's one of the greatest personal things you can do for yourself is to take this test, learn about it. So we're going to give 7 of those away. The social media team will be teeing that up, and there'll be some instructions in our show notes for how you can be hopefully one of our 7 lucky recipients of that test. But I'm really looking forward to sharing tools, if you will, about how we've progressed ourselves and our culture. But back to I kind of took a rabbit trail there, which get ready for that. But Brené's new book, Atlas of the Heart, what I'm by saying that about the Enneagram, what I'm teeing up is I truly believe, knowing that I'm most of the way through Atlas of the Heart, this is an absolute game changer on so many levels that it's hard to explain. But we're going to have an episode soon that tees up Atlas of the Heart and why it's so important. And then next week as a team, every Tuesday, we have Tuesday Team Talks. We will start a 6-week course internally where we're going through the entire book. And then what we're going to do is do some episodes to where we unpack that for and hopefully with you. So this is a signal for you to go buy the book. The audiobook doesn't come out to February, and if I'm you, I'm buying. It's one of the most beautiful books I've ever read and touched. It's read, seen, and touched. The investment that she put into this book is uncanny. It's like nothing I've ever seen. And I'm a highlighter, and so I really appreciate paper where the highlight doesn't bleed. But it's just so well done. But the content is giving us a language about our emotions that I have never, ever seen before.
Right. It's conscious.
It's conscious.
It's becoming conscious about what it is that you're feeling in the moment.
And so I don't want to go too far down that path, but I'm so excited about Atlas because, again, there hasn't been something that's come across, our purview in this self-discovery lane like this book. I do think it's a game changer. And if you don't believe me, listen to the podcast with her and Oprah on Super Soul, or listen to any of Brené's talking about it, the one with Glennon and Abby, where they talk two episodes. That's on
We Can Do Hard Things.
Just listen maybe before you buy the book. I've encouraged the whole team to listen to a podcast before they dove in, and also friends that I've shared this excitement with to listen to a podcast. So I'm excited about that. I'm excited about getting to the point where we have guests, because that's when I think our engines will really get going. We have some incredible guests lined up that have agreed to support us early on in this journey that we're on. I'm looking forward to all of you getting to know our team a little bit better, because this is not just something we've done alone. This is something that this team has, each person here is personally invested and being better every day. That's one of our core values, is being better every day. And this is the journey we're on. So I'm personally excited about my daughter graduating in May, so it's a big milestone. I'm excited about spending some time in Europe with her soon and friends. I've got a big birthday coming up that I've decided to celebrate every month of this year, but the birthday is officially in March. I'm turning 50. Woo! Can't believe it. So we're going to unpack 50 in an episode down the road, so I'm looking forward to that.
Got a lot to look forward to.
A lot to look forward to, yeah.
A whole heck of a lot.
I think we're, as a company, in an incredible position, and we're going to be making some announcements about that, but I won't spoil that here. But I'm extremely excited about the announcements about the future of this company. So, yeah, lots to look forward to.
That's so exciting, and I'm so happy to be along for this podcast journey, and just to continue to be your friend and celebrate your 50th year. And this is going to be great. I've got a lot to look forward to too.
Like
this podcast is absorbing everything I've got within me in terms of excitement at the moment. I'm also looking forward to European travels. Mm-hmm. God willing, number one, I get my passport back that I shipped off in an envelope with a just normal forever stamp on it. And then secondly, that we actually get to go overseas. We haven't been to Europe in a hot minute, so I'm ready to go.
Yep.
I mean, anybody who loves to travel, y'all know it's just been a little bit difficult over the last couple of years. So getting back into that groove will be nice. I think I'm going to have a neat summer with my son. I have a son who's 15 who will be working hopefully at DMA
again,
mm-hmm. and learning some ropes. It's good to get to know those things before you go off to college, so that you're making wiser decisions about the money that you're going to spend out of my savings. And really just working with these women every day is really my jam. Oh my gosh, it just fulfills me so much. So being able to be here and talk about the things that we typically will just talk about, the two of us. Mm-hmm. We just usually have very similar conversations, by the way, just like what we're doing right now. So I'm just looking forward to sharing all of it.
Good.
I know. I think that's all we've got.
It is.
We had fun. Wow. First episode is a wrap.
And too bad it's in the morning. I was hoping for an evening.
A cocktail?
A cocktail would be, a glass of wine would be nice.
Pretend. It doesn't have to be in the morning. No, but yeah, right. So such a great time. And
if you've made it this far, thank you.
Yes,
and
thank you.
We promise to continue to hone our craft of being podcasters. That's not something you wake up and know how to do overnight. So we're going to continue. We love your feedback. And thanks so much.
We send you into the world with grateful hearts.
As always, you can connect with us on Instagram and Facebook at Self Smarter Podcasts. You can also leave a rating or review if you enjoyed what you heard today. Not only does this mean so much to us, but it also helps other leaders and future leaders find our community. Thank you for taking time out of your day to join us in becoming self-smarter. This podcast is produced by Snacks Media, and music is from a free platform. Well, that is until Brandy Carlisle reaches out to us to write the original score for our podcast. Friends, have a great rest of your day.